That makes sense. Like if I was going to knife someone and couldn't get to the neck, I'd definitely go for the leg.
Inner thigh.
Yeah,
That's
for sure. Yeah, bleed out super quickly.
And you're just looking at me and I realize like, if I couldn't get to the neck, like, yeah, have you been planning on how you would
Kill
stab
you
me?
or someone? No, just generally. Now that we have a prowler on the roof, I kind of have to think about...
Well, this is true. This is true.
No, I read a really horrible crime that made me go, okay, I need a plan.
Is it one you want to mention or?
Maybe. But not right now.
Okay. Welcome to Crime by the Bar.
Welcome. I'm Anna.
I'm Jonatan.
And you're listening to us on a beautiful Tuesday.
Beautiful, warm Tuesday. But I got my eyes back. I'm
It's
happy.
Your coping mechanism.
Yes. It's kind of like the caress of winter.
Oh, the caress of winter. I like that. It is so warm outside. Well, and inside, but...
Yeah, true. Now I'm going to try to cool down so I don't need to be doing that the entire... while I'm listening to your story.
Why do you think I'm going first?
Well, okay, we can start with that. I think you're going first.
Do you think I'm worst this week?
Possibly.
I think you're worst.
Really?
Well, I don't know what your crime is.
How tame is yours? So mine is there is death, a death.
Okay.
And, I mean, it's not a nice way to go, but it's not that gruesome nor horrible. I would just assumed that...
Gory?
You were going into something way worse on several accounts from...
I mean, I considered going for the 12-year-old Canadian who got her 14-year-old, 15-year-old boyfriend to kill a couple of 14-year-old girls in her class at school.
Something along those lines, yeah?
But I didn't.
Oh, okay.
And there's another one with another Canadian who convinces her, also 12 years old, I think, convinces her 22-year-old boyfriend to murder her parents and her little brother because they're not too happy about the age gap. Strange, that.
I was going to say that, so apparently Canadians are the most charming and, how do you say, charming and convincing people, but maybe they're just easier to convince. In that case.
Yeah, they're very obliging.
Yeah, obliging, good word.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's more, I remember when those two cases hit the press because I was spending a lot of time in Canada back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, not exciting, but interesting. But no, I decided to go for something a little less grim, like not involving kids.
Well, that's probably good.
Yeah.
I thought I would be pretty vanilla middle of the road, but no, if you think I'm worse, then I can go.
I'm voting you worst.
Yeah, let's just get started, I guess. We normally have a bit more Tuesday back and forth, but screw it. Would you like to hear my story?
I would like to hear your story.
I shall...
Yeah, I didn't do the tell me your story bit. Do you want me to say?
Nah,
okay.
we need to switch it up.
Okay.
Keep all the lovely listeners on their toes.
You know we have a listener in Greenland now? At least one listener in Greenland.
Oh.
As of last week. And we also, as of the weekend, have listeners in Brazil.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
How cool is that?
That is cool.
I'm super psyched about Greenland because it's like, wow, there's only 30,000 people there and we have one of them. At least one of them. Which is super cool. But
it's a bit closer to an actual percentage than... I mean, Brazil is off huge. So.
Still super cool. Still psyched about Brazil.
Oh, definitely.
And the Argentinians are still going strong with us. But
nice.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I'm so happy about that.
But yeah. Ooh. Okay, one more thing before we launch into crimes. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, as of yesterday, we will know what has become of Henri Vanbreda.
Oh.
Yeah, Henri Vanbreda, sorry.
Really?
Yeah. Sentencing is supposed to be Monday. Like yesterday.
That's cool.
Yeah, but unfortunately, due to our magical time travel, I won't know. You won't know. I could always record something and then you can splice it in.
That could be kind of cool. But no, I think we'll probably do Twitter updates and for the next week, I suppose.
The creepy thing is, so Henri Vanbreda flew into, I think, Johannesburg on Friday with his girlfriend, who's still with him.
Really?
Yeah, the girlfriend's still with him after all this.
Huh.
Henry shaved his head and looks like... He just looks ridiculous. He does. I'm sorry. I'm not saying you shouldn't shave your head, but I mean, he had golden locks before that were sort of tumbling across his scalp, and he shaved them off a couple of months
across the scalp.
But they're big bouncy blonde curls, which fine, whatever. But you can't go from that to being a skinhead. It just doesn't work. Like, you have to have a transition period. I'm sorry. It's just that it's how it has to be. So he went from that to really shaved down to nothing, and he looks ridiculous in court with it. And now he flew in with his girlfriend on Friday, and he's wearing a beanie hat. So okay, Jonatan, tell me your story.
Yes, let's have a look at crime.
Crime.
Yes. Double crime, since we do have two. I'm assuming sometimes we have more, but...
Yeah, I can tell you the rejected ones for me this week, but...
Yeah, we'll see. We shall dig in. So, for my crime this week, we're going to Melbourne.
Yay!
In Victoria, Australia.
Yay! Off we go.
So, we are talking about Robyn Lindholm. Robyn grew up in Melbourne, as mentioned. And, she went... pretty normal, but successful upbringing and education. She did well in school. By the age of 15, she had been both state and national ice skating champion.
Hey,
so kind of impressive.
Very nice.
So things were just going along pretty well and according to the normal general plan until she dropped out in her first year of university. So she went to Monash University, I think, initially pursuing a Bachelor's of Science degree.
Okay.
But instead, she dropped out and she changed tracks and went for animal husbandry course instead.
Oh, amazing! Do you know anything about animal husbandry?
As in general, I mean, my grandfather was a farmer, so there were some general... he mostly had chickens, but there were a lot of neighbors with horses. And
I can picture it perfectly. I love it.
I used to ride a lot when I was a kid, but yeah, so she'd always been very fond of horse riding in particular, and she had gotten her first horse from her father when she was 12 years old, and so later in life she went into breeding horses as well and really experienced with that. So this was a very big and persistent passion through her life. Basically. Cool. So by the age of 23, which feels kind of young, but she bought a 74-acre farm.
Holy shit.
In Glenhope, a bit north of Melbourne. And I guess it isn't technically weird, but it feels... I was not ready to buy a farm when I was 23.
How many people do you know that bought property at 23?
0.
Okay, I think I know 2 off the top of my head.
I know people who got, or not necessarily inherited, but received property, but that's slightly different.
Yeah, I can think of 2 who did it independently, and it wasn't a 73-acre farm, put it that way.
No. But no, she went out for that on her own.
Good for her, but whoa.
Yeah, so this kind of led to her working both for a car dealership and... she worked for the Crown Casino. Double jobs, make ends meet.
I mean, you'd think you'd just start off with a smaller farm, but okay.
Kind of, but no. I don't know. Maybe there's a minimum. I'm not that on top of the actual horse rearing, but you probably need some space. But yes, at the Crown Casino, she started as a barmaid, but later she was moved up... I know. So do you say promoted when it's like a different role? Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah. She worked instead as a hostess in the exclusive high rollers VIP section.
I was going to say, is that a step up? I don't know. And then, okay, fine.
Yeah. pretty sure. In this like high rollers thing, she met an Alex Prelak, the owner of the Simply Irresistible Stripping Agency.
Okay.
And
I was gonna say, whenever you said hostess in a high rollers, I'm like, already I'm smelling something is a bit amiss here, because you think of it like hiring on looks and that whole shitty misogynistic, like, we just want someone pretty to stand around and say hi, welcome.
Pretty much, yeah.
So yeah. Okay, great, awesome. Dude with a stripper empire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, the agency, at least. I'm not sure if it was an empire. But yeah, so he kind of convinced her to come work for them part-time.
Anytime you have to say convinced, I'm just like, if you want to go and strip, that's cool, fine. But
she didn't start actually stripping. So she worked part-time with them as barmaid / lingerie waitress, which is...
lingerie waitress, right?
Yeah.
I thought the most misogynistic term we were using was hostess in a high rollers lounge, but okay, great. Lingerie waitress.
That's what it said on her CV.
Unless she's like delivering lingerie to people, in which case, fair enough.
Oh, that's... I know, just got a view of waitress with like full-on suit and the classic big silver plate with a dome on top, and like,
may I interest
underwear.
you in this? She works behind the stage. She's in the back, like in the dressing rooms. She works for the dancers, and they have like a little call button like you have in a plane, and they press a button, and then she goes out and says, "Oh, hello."
Oh, and with a cart, like a playing cart, and like open boxes,
like a tea trolley. Can I interest you in anything from the trolley, ladies? Like, oh, I haven't seen those tassels before. It'll really, that with your colouring just look fabulous. Oh,
that's
okay,
kind of brilliant.
Okay, she was made for this job. Lingerie waitress, cool.
Okay, I think we might have redefined the term, but yeah.
Well, that's better than
that's a gorgeous vision, though. I do like that. Oh,
you know what? Like, you have to pay for your horses somehow, and however you do it, fine.
Yeah, true.
Just
true.
I don't know. I'm getting creep vibes off Mr. Convincey Man.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah, she needed to pad out and make probably better money than the casino and that as well.
Yeah, so fair enough, really.
So yeah, that's how she started there. But after a while, she also started dancing at the club.
I have no rhythm, but good for her.
Yes, sorry, not at the club. So the thing with it being the agency, Simply Irresistible, so they kind of hired out more to like other venues or other events as well, I think.
Okay.
So by 1998, she was working full-time as a freelance dancer.
I mean, that can be a really way better way to make money than being on the payroll somewhere, but it can also just mean that they can give you essentially a 0-hour contract and you have no consistent income. So
that's the thing.
Hope it all works out for you, honey.
Well, we'll see.
I suspect it doesn't.
There is a beginning and an end. I'm not entirely sure about the middle, but somewhere. So yeah, she was pretty much full-time in 98. In 2003, she was dancing at the Central Club Hotel in Richmond, where she met Wayne Amy.
Don't like the name. Concerned. Massively concerned.
They met for the first time there. There was a bit of... Yeah, they knew each other, but it wasn't until in 2005, early 2006-ish, that the two of them started a relationship together.
Okay.
Wayne was his main profession, he owned a gym. I think it was called Visions, which is slightly weird. But
visions of what your body could be if you start coming instead of...
Maybe, but then you kind of need like the funhouse mirrors or Photoshop for your thing or something like that.
No, just a shitload of hallucinogenics in the lobby.
Hey, like that. You probably burn some calories.
Yeah, it probably gives you a shitload of energy. They just put you in like a padded room, no weights, no free weights in this gym. That's dangerous. But
and just like put up monitors with, I don't know, National Geographic, and then just put people on the treadmill walking, and they're just like walking towards the lion.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a good gym concept.
Unfortunately, the name is taken, but we'll sort something out.
We'll work it out. It'll be fine.
True. But so she also hopped in and helped work at the gym from time to time, but she was still actively working with Simply Irresistible until at least 2010-ish.
That must be mentally exhausting, having so many different jobs on the go.
Yeah, I'm pretty when I said that she was working full time as a freelance dancer, I kind of interpreted that as she left the car dealership and the casino and all that behind and basically focused on that full time.
Yeah, but if she's doing freelance, then she'll be in different locations all the time.
True.
That's knackering. No routine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then just randomly showing up at the psychedelic gym.
Yes.
To help out when people start chewing on the yoga mats.
We're coming up with a lot of interesting concepts here. I'm going to need to beep out a lot so we don't get copy jumped, I guess.
Yeah. Don't steal our ideas. They're copyrighted. We're like filing patents for all this shit right now.
Yeah, we already mailed all the pitches to ourselves. So.
Don't even bother. Actually, we can franchise. If you're interested, please reach out to us. crimebythebar@gmail.com.
Thank you. So, where was I?
Sorry.
I was at the gym, yes.
You were.
Weird gym. I haven't been in ages. Yeah, so they were getting close. It was a proper committed relationship in that sense, but they weren't living together full time for the first bit. But a bit later, so Wayne had been urging her to sell her farm in Glenhope so that they could buy a larger one together.
Okay.
Move in there. So
Don't do it.
Yeah, she did. Robyn kind of reluctantly sold her farm. It was a pretty bad deal. She didn't get a reasonable price for it, but by this at this stage, she was very much. She had said that she really wanted to settle down, start a family.
What age is she now?
In her 30s now, basically. I think closer to 35, 36-ish. She really wanted to settle down and start a family, basically.
Okay, fine.
However, Wayne was not as on board with that. He wanted to get the farm together and move in, but
let's breed horses, not humans.
Pretty much. So he had already had a son from a previous relationship, and
he doesn't want another.
Yeah, he said what he told her was that they couldn't afford to have another child, so he ran off and got a vasectomy.
Did he tell her?
I'm not 100% sure, but I got the impression that he told her afterwards.
Classy.
Yes.
Wow.
So this kind of led to their relationship drifting into chaos a bit.
I mean, strange that running off and getting, Okay.
There was a lot of arguing and they broke up, they reconciled, then just going around in circles that way.
Yeah.
So there was just basically always fights, or during reconciliation false promises from Wayne, who in a lot of what I'm reading, it really looks like he was only interested in just keep hooking up with Robyn, and really very much focused on the sexual relationship and making promises to get through with that. But towards the end of 2012, there was a more definite end to the relationship, as even though they had been going back and forth so much, but Wayne took out a so-called intervention order, which I think is Australian for a restraining order. It seems similar. I've looked at a few examples, and she was basically forced out of her home.
No.
So he was still at the farm. He still had the farm in Bittern, but she was forced out in 2013.
This is why we should never don't cohabit, don't love anyone, don't be
I want to love people.
No, it's bad for you. This shit happens. It's inevitable.
True.
Well, maybe not. Sorry.
So there was a big turn, and I do want to say though that this entire narrative might be a bit coloured, as all of these details were mostly what was presented by Robyn's defence during her trial.
What did Robyn do to need defence?
Well, In 2013, Wayne Amy's body was found wedged between a couple of boulders on Mount Coercion in central Victoria.
Oh dear, I did not see this going this way. I've been, yeah, okay.
That
Between
might be
boulders.
me cheating a bit, but yes. Cheating and bending the narrative. But yeah, they, like say wedged between a couple of boulders, it was basically just like stuffed in a bit, I suppose.
Oh dear.
It was not like a collapse or something like that. So
Like a sock down the back of the sofa.
yeah.
Oh dear, poor Wayne.
Yeah, it was a bit worse. So he had several fractured ribs, multiple lacerations to the head, 4 stab wounds to the torso, and forensics showed that he had also been choked with a blue rope.
Blue?
I'm assuming one of those blue, freely kind of...
Nylon-y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just assuming I haven't seen the actual rope, but it was blue. That we know. So it turned out that Wayne was killed just the day before he and Robyn were supposed to meet in court to address the property dispute concerning the farm. And he was attacked by 2 men at his apartment block's underground car park sometime after 11:30 on the night of the 10th of December. And then he was put in the boot or trunk of a car and driven off.
That's pretty grim. I'm sitting here nodding, but I'm also making a face. And
both wonderful podcast tools.
yeah, of course. But I don't know. Being in the boot of a car while it's being driven around is always quite fun, but only if it's consensual.
Always, yeah. I was going to say, it sounds like you've done this multiple times.
Oh yeah, of course.
Really?
As a child.
Oh.
Yeah. It's quite good crack, but the minute it's this, I'm just like, you're ruining my childhood fun.
Oh.
But yeah, bundled into a boot against your will. Before they have those emergency release levers, and whenever you have to kick out the taillights from the inside, and that scary stuff.
So at the period, or at the time when Wayne was murdered, Robyn was unemployed and living out of her car.
Oh dear.
So sometimes she stayed with her parents for short stints, but that was apparently not too comfortable. And she was supposedly regularly abusing both alcohol and ice, which a lot of Australians were talking about ice. As I looked it up, though, it looks like a meth variation or something.
Crystal meth, probably?
I think so.
I think it's crystal meth.
Yeah, but I didn't get a full confirmation. So if you know ice, and I have my ice.
Jonathan's got a whole bag of ice sitting on his lap right now. He's really happy about it. But
it has melted a lot, though. But no, this is not methy ice. This is water ice I have here. So yeah, she was abusing alcohol and ice substances. During this time, as she was living out of a car, apparently, she had entered a relationship with a Torsten Trabert.
What?
That's the name of a guy.
Oh, I was like, what is a Torsten Trevor? I've never heard of it. Is it a profession? Is it a religion? Is it what?
Just a dude.
Okay. With a dude. Okay.
Yes. And they were in a similar situation. I think he was also kind of thrown out after breaking up with his wife, supposedly for Robyn's sake, because he was madly enamored with this woman.
Oh dear.
So according to some statements from the court, I couldn't find exactly what they refer to, but Robyn had conspired to murder Wayne for almost 2 years. But it wasn't until 2013, presumably spurred on by the legal dispute, I would guess, that she actually went out. She convinced Trabert and another friend called John Ryan, who was also kind of infatuated with her, she convinced them to carry out the deed for her.
Oh.
So it did look rather obvious. It didn't take that long for them to catch them. Naturally, Robyn was a suspect due to their dispute, her being thrown out, and their past.
It's pretty suspicious timing.
Yeah, and a spouse is always someone you should at least check in on.
It's always them.
So they were keeping their eyes on her, but even though she didn't carry out the murder herself, she was caught on CCTV together with Trappert and Ryan in a pub, like just straight after they had disposed of the body. And they were going into the pub and on camera, and they're like, oh, they're hugging and they're having some drinks, and it is available online, the CCTV footage, and it looks like just completely normal. Someone probably looks a bit drunk and friendly, and yeah.
We know for sure that she's guilty, right?
Because
seriously?
Kind of. She did plead guilty at the end of the pre-trial argument when they just started and brought her in, because, well, it was not that difficult a case to crack, apparently.
Okay.
But no, she pleaded guilty, but both Trappert and Ryan pleaded not guilty. They were both claiming that the other was the one who actually killed Wayne, and like, no, it was just him. I didn't want any part of this. And going back and forth.
I mean, that's not a bad defense.
No, but you can only get that far, especially since, it's the connection. So it's at least, conspiring together and being, what's the word?
Accomplices?
Accomplices, yes,
yeah.
Thank you. Accomplices. So that would be straightforward. But this was also just pre-trial hearing. They had a lot of statements on each other. Like Ryan told the police how but both Robyn and Trappert had been like laughing and carrying on like it was nothing during that evening, and that after the body had been disposed of, Robyn and Trappert just wanted to fucking party, and I just felt ill the whole way, which is understandable, but also they were saying similar things back and just swapping the roles basically.
Yep.
Except for Robyn, who just went with it. Nope, guilty. So there were some things that I didn't bring up in my initial backstory as well, because Robyn had a few, a bit bigger collection of shady experiences.
Robyn, I was on your side. Come on.
She had, for instance, several ties to the Australian Hells Angels.
Oh.
Was the members and events.
Okay, that's not great.
She had previously dated an infamous gangster called Alphonse Gangitano, aka the Black Prince of Lygon Street, which is,
I mean, it's a pretty good name.
Kind of impressive, but also pompous.
Yes, that's perfect. That is exactly it.
During a period as well when she was involved here before and up to Wayne, she had been dating a standover man called George Tiasis, also known as Templeton. That's a nickname, I suppose.
Okay.
They'd been dating for like a long 6-year tumultuous period, I think.
Oh, wow.
So do you know what a standover man is?
No, I don't.
No. I had never heard this, and as far as I can tell, it's basically extortionist. But which kind of makes sense, but it also sounds a bit classier, I guess.
I mean, yeah, okay, fine. I don't know about classier. It's just like, okay, well, that's suitably vague. Thanks. Why couldn't you just said extortionist?
Yeah, true.
Standover man, yeah. Nah. Yeah. Well, you taught me something. Thank you.
Hey. So this guy, George, he mysteriously disappeared on the 2nd of May in 2005. It was pretty quickly, widely believed to be a murder case due to his dealings and such. But at the time, Wayne was actually the prime suspect in his disappearance.
No.
Because, it looked very much like he and Robyn had an affair. You remember they met in 2003.
Yeah.
Then they got together end of 2005, 2006.
Oh, dear.
Yep. Apparently, Robyn had also been telling Wayne about how George Tiasis had been treating her, been violent towards her and stuff like that. Ugh. And yeah, Robyn is now very much believed to be the one behind the suspected murder, but they haven't found anything on it, so they don't know for sure. But
so they think she's done this twice.
Kind of looks like it, and the second time, towards the person before.
Well, I mean that ties up some loose ends, right?
It kind of does. But it looks like the first time would have been way better considering how sloppy the second time was.
Yeah.
Or possibly third time. As
No.
police also now believe that she may have been involved in the disappearance and murder of an exotic dancer who also worked for the Simply Irresistible. So she was called Sherry Davison.
She didn't want anything off the lingerie cart?
Apparently not. Or she stole the cart. I don't know. So the Sherry, she was 26 years old when she disappeared in 1995. So they worked together.
She's been at it for ages.
Possibly. So this one, I couldn't find anything. They hadn't released anything concrete, basically.
Wow.
So that might come later. Who knows? But
yeah, hopefully.
no. So on the, I told about the pretrial arguments. The actual trial was in June 2015.
Okay.
It went on for 16 days, and
That's not long.
they were all found guilty.
Yay!
So the sentencing in December 2015 was Robyn got 25 years, which would be a minimum of 21 years.
I mean, that's not bad, all things considered.
No, and I think I couldn't actually find an actual birth date, but judging from statements and piecing together, I think that she was 42 in 2015.
Okay.
So even if it's just 21 years, that's...
Best bits.
Yeah. Best bits that are left, at least. Yes. Trabert was jailed for 28 years with a minimum of 23 years. And
That seems kind of surprising, considering but she presumably wasn't involved in the actual killing.
no.
Yeah. You'd think there'd be a bigger difference.
No, I thought so as well, actually. So Ryan, the third person, got 31 years with a minimum of 26 years. But I think there was a lot of talk and there was an appeal as well to the verdict from the guys, basically, because both of them were very much on the point that this murder would not have happened if it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
So they wanted more leniency to conform with her sentence, I suppose. But no, this is apparently upheld as it is now. So they're in jail, and who knows, maybe we'll get some update if some more info on the older ones come up, but I'm not feeling too confident on that.
That's crazy, though. So she might have done this twice before, and it was just
Possibly.
that the last one was such a shitty job that she got caught.
That is a possibility.
I hadn't heard of it before. You usually end with, well, that was my story.
That was my story.
It's the hand gesture that makes it.
We'll have to film it and make a GIF or something.
Yeah, we will, for sure. It'll go like Drew Scanlon's one.
Yes. He has a lot of nice faces.
Yeah,
He has a nice face. That boy's got a nice face.
he does. It's a very lookable face.
Lickable?
Lookable.
Oh, I could lick that face.
I don't know. The weather's too warm to think about licking anyone's face.
Really?
I'm not a hamster. I don't need a salt lick.
I didn't think of that. I was just thinking of the lovely sharing, cooling down, and intimacy and tongues.
On that note, let's take a break. Get another drink. Do the leg stretching.
Yes, we will be right back.
We're back.
We are back, and we hopefully have more crime. Or if you're so sure that you were definitely not worst, maybe it's so mild that it isn't a crime at all. It's just a big triple bluff.
Maybe it is. Shall we find out?
Yeah, let's find out. Please.
Please?
Yes, please. I'm
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure if I'm
I
going
thought
to
there was
ask
more.
a question.
No. I'm going to ask you something. Have you heard of Diana Lovejoy?
No. But it's a good classic surname.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And who doesn't, to be honest?
If you want to know about her outside of this, you can look up her YouTube cooking show.
Hey.
She makes stir-fried shrimp. I'm not going to question the recipe too much, but because I have bigger issues with that video.
Okay.
It's like Dr. Seuss does cooking. It's like...
That sounds kind of amazing, though.
No, because it's not any good. I think she was... I guess she submitted it for like a craft thing, like maybe Kraft, the food company, was doing a competition or something, because the whole thing seems heavily scripted. Like she seems to have written it all out herself. It's very amateur, but it's like she's memorized it and she's almost doing it as a script. And she describes every step as a rhyme. And a lot of them are really like shoehorned
forced,
into where it's kind of awkward at moments.
I mean, I like the concept, but
no, and it's also kind of a shame because the camera faces her directly when she's standing at a kitchen island, but the stove is on the back wall, so she has to keep turning her back to actually do the cooking.
Oh, okay.
And she makes spaghetti with prawns and broccoli, and instead of actually using a sauce, she uses Kraft salad dressing and some peanuts.
Okay, I can't eat prawns. I do not know what the taste would work, but that sounds kind of horrible to me.
Prawns. Imagine...
As in the combination you described sounds a bit horrible.
Imagine a savoury marshmallow mixed with chicken. Does that help?
Not really, because I barely remember chicken.
Oh shit, of course. Why do I keep doing this to you? Okay.
I have had chicken, but...
Imagine... Do you have puffed rice, like Rice Krispies? Imagine if you could do that with pork. So it's kind of a lighter flavour. It's a different texture. It's still meat, so it's not like puffed rice, but it's like if you could do what you do with rice to pork to make it, that sounds
kind of amazing.
Prawns are pretty great.
Yeah. I'll hopefully get to try it someday.
Listeners, if you're going, what is she talking about? Find a way to describe prawns or shrimps to someone who can't eat seafood or chicken.
Let us know on Twitter @CrimeBillBar, because I want to know.
Because I don't know how to begin to describe it.
I know, you had a good pitch. Like I'm intrigued now. Prawn has not been on my list. Now it's on my list.
When's your EpiPen expire?
No, but like check this, right?
We did, yeah. They're expensive. Let's whenever it's about to run out, we'll put some prawns in you and I'll stab you. But yeah. Okay, sorry. Anyway, Diana Lovejoy, you have no idea who she is. That is fine. You have missed nothing on her YouTube cooking video. Apart from her cooking things that would kill you. Hey. Diana Lovejoy was a software technical writer and a triathlete. She was a former personal trainer, so she's like pretty hardcore whenever it comes to fitness. And her husband is Greg Mulvihill, and they've been married for 7 years. I'm taking you the whole way back to 2014 though. Yeah, they've been married for 7 years, and by all accounts had sort of known each other a long time and been in each other's lives for a long time. But shit gets real at a certain point and they split up. To add a little bit of sad context to it, in the 7 years they were married, she had 8 miscarriages. They really wanted to have kids, but yeah, it was a pretty grim path to getting there. That is
quite rough, yeah.
Yeah, and when she found out she was pregnant, apparently that was the last time they were ever intimate again, shall we say. So they'd been to marriage counselling, but that was it. It was done. And around the time their son is 1 year old, they go ahead and start divorce proceedings. And unfortunately, it is not a tidy divorce. Diana ends up taking out a restraining order. It was a temporary one, but yeah, she took out a restraining order claiming that Greg was sexually abusive towards her and had molested their son, Cale. She said that she'd actually seen it happen on one occasion. Don't know why she didn't deal with it at that time, but so yeah, it was pretty serious. Immediately, Greg had his parental rights kind of put on hold. He wasn't allowed to be around their kid, and an investigation kicked off. So the family court imposed professionally supervised visits between Greg and Cale, and he was only allowed to see him for a couple of hours a week. Meanwhile, Cale had to go through all sorts of interviews and evaluations with sex therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, all sorts. And it went on for quite a long time. Basically, they separated in July 2014, and the restraining order was taken out almost immediately. And by late 2015, it was confirmed that actually there was no abuse. And by all accounts, Greg was arguably the better parent. And the whole thing seemed super shady. So he was allowed to spend time around their kid again. And I mean, the whole situation is pretty awkward because Greg is really insistent that he's a good parent, and that Diana's just, she's having a tough time, but she's not a malicious person. But it's not looking great. A couple months after he was granted custody again, the judge involved in their case ended up ordering Diana to pay over $100 a month in child support to Greg. She was on about $120,000 a year at the time, and he was on about $100,000. So it was a high income family. By the way, didn't tell you where this was. This is in Carlsbad in California.
Ah, okay. I guess it is good on both ends with there is an accusation, and for the child safety they immediately do something about it and separate it, but then also going back and managing it once it's proven the other way around, I suppose. But
I mean, I feel so sorry for the kid in the situation, because it must be shit enough as a child that's barely able to verbalize anything to have your parents start splitting up and not really understanding what's going on, but all of a sudden having to go through evaluations and tests and long interviews, and you never really get to see your dad. And like when you do see him, then there's someone there making notes and everything that's going on. It's weird. Yeah. And I'm telling you this because it's pretty much accepted that the claims are total bullshit. But who the fuck does that? Like, why would you do that? So, yeah, well, actually, there is a reason. As I said, Diana was on about $20,000 more a year than he was, but they're both high income. Greg was actually a software engineer. So both good jobs, together a long time. You'd think that, hey, this is a fairly straightforward, let's just divide things down the middle, but stuff wasn't so simple. Diana was going to get the house whenever they split up, but she would then have to pay Greg a one-off payment to cover half the value of the house, which amounted to $120,000. So essentially her yearly income. Yeah. Now she went into the marriage with an apartment that she rented out and got, the money from that. Oh. So her solution was going to be selling this apartment that she brought into the marriage, which she wasn't very happy about because she was still renting it and still making money from it. Yeah. But 2 years later, summer of 2016, they've settled on joint custody. They have settled on alimony, which is her paying him. Initially, it was $113 a month. He contested it and said it should have been more. It went back and forth for a while. But they did settle around $100-ish a month. That she would have to pay him. She had to pay the first amount in the alimony by the end of September in 2016, and the $120,000 she would have to pay by mid-October. So, but even after this, they were still going on the route that she was going to get the house, basically. Yeah, I mean, he seemed to be pretty much okay with her getting the house. Like, as long as he got the money for it, then I don't think he cared that much. And she brought the apartment into their marriage. Yeah. So she wasn't happy about selling it, but it is what it is. So by the end of August, they had, all in all, sort of settled everything. They did still have to sign the final paperwork. And once they signed it, it's probably going to be another month or two before everything is through and they're officially divorced. But it was generally considered that by the end of August, that's it. There's no more mucking around with payments, with custody, with housing, with anything. Like, it's done. But things had potential to change on the 1st of September. So Greg had received a call from a number that he didn't recognise. And it was a PI saying that he was hired by Diana Lovejoy. And Diana had hired him to find essentially evidence to prove that he'd been abusive. But instead, he had found evidence that would support Greg in the divorce and that would show... He was pretty vague about it, but would show that Diana was a bad parent and a bad wife, essentially.
That would have been pretty much proven by this point, though, with her doing what she did.
Yeah, but it's... All they were able to prove is that there was no evidence of child abuse. And she was really insisting that was the case. And aside from anything else, she was accusing him of... abusing her as well, and that wasn't looked into in the same way.
Okay.
And not sure why, not sure if she didn't pursue it or what the story is, but she was really throwing around these accusations. And at the end of the day, if there had been something really strong, then Greg could have got full custody. There wasn't something really incriminating that said Diana was an unfit parent or anything else. Okay. And just because an allegation is can be proved to be true doesn't mean that it's false.
This is true.
As it goes on, we're pretty confident it's all false. Just otherwise, I wouldn't even be touching this mess.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so he gets this weird ass call. It's just after 10:30 at night. And the guy says that this is your one chance. He tells him, I will leave some evidence at this location. It's fairly remote, but it's near enough by. And I'll leave a few pieces of evidence there. If you're interested, then I'll follow up with instructions on how you can pay me for it. If you think it's any good. So it is kind of dodgy, but it's also kind of reasonable. Yeah.
I mean, the whole... like doing a dead drop for that is very dodgy, but the whole okay, no, here's a taster, we'll see what we arrange.
Yeah, and
but no, this just smells like a setup.
It does sound a bit weird, and because the divorce wasn't yet finalized, this is kind of the only moment that it's good. So even, the PI is saying this is your one and only chance, but even if he had have left it a little bit longer, they don't have much time to spare. They're literally about to sign the paperwork on this. And then it's just a waiting game for the divorce to go through.
True.
So the package was due to be taped to an electricity pole along a hiking path. Like, it's a kind of gravel road. I have the location, but I don't think either of us are going to be familiar enough with it to even care. It's super obscure. It's a dirt path, like 10-15 minutes away from where he happened to be living at the time. So he was familiar enough with it, but it's not got a lot of foot traffic. Greg is kind of freaked out, but also very curious, and it's in his best interest to, of course, go, he thinks. But he is kind of torn about what to do. So in the end, he decides he will go to the location, but he brings along a guy called Jason Kovac, who was a friend, a neighbour, and also apparently his boss. They lived in the same apartment building, so I think... because Greg moved in there after he and his wife split up, I assume that Jason Kovac is the one who either hooked him up with the apartment or recommended the building, because it's a bit of a coincidence otherwise.
Yeah. But it was still good on him for having backup.
Yeah, I know, right? So he decides, right, this is what we're going to do. But he's still quite freaked out about the whole thing. He and Jason drive up to this location, and they're not quite there yet. It seems like they pull over the car and Greg calls the local police. It's just before 11 o'clock at night, and he asks them for some advice. He tells the dispatcher essentially what I've told you, that he got a call from a guy saying that he's a private investigator and he wants to meet him with a package, blah, blah, blah. And Greg says he's nervous about it. Dispatcher says, don't meet him if you don't feel comfortable. So fine, Greg hangs up. Ultimately, he and Jason do continue on.
Okay.
They get out of the car. Greg has a bicycle torch or a bicycle light that he's using as a torch. And they brought along his now 3-year-old kid's little mini baseball bat. It's like an aluminium thing. Yeah.
As in for protection.
Yeah, for protection. Well, I mean, bear in mind the call came in like half an hour ago. You grab what you have.
Yeah, but
So
It's gonna be tiny.
yeah, I imagine it is tiny. I imagine it's the size of like my forearm.
I would have gone to the kitchen, like get a dough roller or something like that would be better.
A dough roller.
Yeah, or a frying pan if you're going for the comedic effect.
I think it's probably easier to wield a mini baseball bat than it is to wield a frying pan or a rolling pin. But I mean, the image is quite ridiculous. These two guys dandering around in the dark on a gravel path, one with a bicycle light, one with it is weird. It is utterly weird. But I mean, they're looking around and they don't see what they're looking for. Then Greg sees a towel at the bottom of this pole, and they keep describing it as a pole, but it's a full-on like one of those electricity things. Like, it's thick, it's got a big concrete block at the bottom that's quite massive. Like, it's big enough that you could probably sit on the concrete block at the bottom. It's not like a skinny little pole that we would have in the Irish countryside. It's a big thing. So Greg sees a towel at the bottom of the pole, and he doesn't like run to the pole because he can see that it's not what he's looking for, presumably. And he's shining the bicycle light around, and Jason's dandering around behind him, and they are kind of on high alert. The whole thing is strange. And at that point, Jason sees some movement in the bushes, because there's bushes either side of this gravel path. And yeah, Greg is sort of looking in that direction now and sees a dude in camouflage, prone in the bushes, pointing a long barrel gun directly at him. Yeah. So this all happens really quickly. The man opens fire. He shoots 6 times, and Jason and Greg start running. Jason's fine. Greg gets hit. Bullet enters his chest, just under the left armpit, and goes through his rib cage and out of his back. Oh. Yeah. But I guess adrenaline is pumping, and he is running after being hit. It's pretty bad. It was only 16 minutes after they called the police the first time to go, hey, I'm about to do this thing and it might be a bit dodgy. Do you think it's okay? Yeah. 16 minutes after making that call, they call the police again to say, it's Jason on the phone this time, essentially saying my friend has been shot. Dispatcher's asking, did you see who shot him? And he said there's a guy lying down like a sniper. And the dispatcher does the shit they need to do. But at this point, police are kind of freaking out because there's a dude with a gun, and it is like some guy in full-blown camo lying down in the bushes with a long-barrel gun. That is terrifying. So they do what's called a reverse 911 call. And it goes out to all...
119? What?
Yeah, we'll get there. A reverse 911 call. It goes out to all the residents nearby, and it basically is to warn people...
Oh, get it. Oh, okay.
It's to warn people, don't leave your houses, don't do this, bad shit is going on. So, yeah, this is all shortly after 11. They send SWAT teams in to check the area. Meanwhile, the police have to make a call on whether or not they're going to send an ambulance in, and they make the decision because it's kind of a hilly area, not to send an ambulance in because they're worried that the shooter could be on high ground and could be watching the whole thing, and they don't want a whole ambulance crew to be taken out by it because... Oh, of course. Yeah, like, what do you do in that situation? Do you risk one person dying or... Yeah, so they make the call. Officer makes it out there and essentially rushes Greg to the hospital, and more officers come in later on to secure the area and check it all out. Greg is taken to hospital. He goes in for emergency surgery, and the gunshot wound, or the bullet, had passed the whole way through him. He was described as being in it was a critical injury, but he was in stable condition after the surgery, but it did take some time, and the whole thing was quite scary, but they were quite confident within the first 24 hours that, hey, he's going to make it. Unless something goes wrong, he's going to be okay. Meanwhile, police are still going through the area trying to find out what the hell is going on because, like, seriously. And I left out a bit. Whenever Greg is looking at the bushes and he sees the guy with the gun pointed at him, he yells gun. And then the shots ring out, and then he runs off. Which might not seem like it matters, but it kind of does.
It's a good training.
Yeah, meanwhile, police are checking the area. By 3 a.m., they give an all clear, and a second message goes out to the residents to say, hey, it's fine. If you want to leave the house now at 3 in the morning, you're okay to do so. And at this point, the police visit Diana because, you know, hey, your husband, technically, husband has been shot, and the father of your 3-year-old kid. So the kid, Kale, is, of course, with her. They go to talk to her and tell her what's happened, and they're a bit freaked out by her reaction because, among other things, she's laughing and she's quite giddy and she's also quite cheery, and
as she's receiving the news and not just when they got okay.
And she also didn't seem to be asleep. She may have been asleep, but she didn't seem to be asleep whenever they arrive. So the whole thing is a bit strange. So police are kind of on high alert for her because it's weird behaviour. Yeah. Meanwhile, they're checking the scene. They don't get a proper look at it until later on the next morning, and they started out with a very wide search area, and they bring it in closer and closer because, of course, they have the information that comes from Jason. Greg is able to talk to them the next day and give them a bit more detail. So they bring in the search area, and they find some interesting things. They find... So at the scene, they find cigarette butts that are fresh, a shell casing, a towel that has been soiled, and a full bowel movement, shall we say.
Oh, I just remembered.
There's a full-blown shit there, and it's human, and yeah.
Okay.
And the towel is soiled from that. Yeah, that was the towel at the bottom of the pole that Greg was going, hey, there's a towel down there.
Oh, okay.
I know. This was my face as well whenever I'm reading about this. Like, I didn't pick this because, yeah, anyway. So it's a little bit strange.
We're here for some wholesome, family-approved murder, not pooping.
There's a lot of poo in this story. I'm sorry. Just pre-warning. I'll try to keep it as ungraphic as possible. I don't want to be graphic, but there's some interviews coming up and it will be about the poo.
Fair enough. I'm good, but I trust you to be the better judge of our audience.
I mean, if it were me, I would rather not hear about this, but it's also quite interesting. So
there you go. I do believe that you are pretty much our target audience, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there was a forensic specimen left at the crime location, and there were smears of that specimen left on a tile at the crime scene. So
that works.
Police start looking into things. The most obvious thing to do is, of course, check where the phone call came from the PI, because there was no evidence there and we have no idea what the story is. Yeah. So it wasn't an unknown number, there was an actual number, but it was associated with a burner phone. And you think, oh shit, cheap prepaid cell phone, there's no way we're tracing that. Mm-hmm. They did. They managed to track it down to a specific store. So I think it was in a Best Buy, but basically they worked out that it was purchased sometime in the middle of August from this store, and they, within the first couple of days, start going back to look through the security footage. Looking at the security footage, and they see someone they recognise. Diana is on camera going in, buying this burner phone, and leaving. And I think it was the only thing she bought. So it seems super suspicious, and it's in the middle of August. And yeah, police were already kind of thinking, lady seems a bit odd. They decide to pick her up, and they end up searching her house. So they pull her over under the pretense that it's just a regular traffic stop, and they end up searching her house. And that is on the 7th of September.
I mean, that's sneaky. I like it, and it's probably good, but it's still very sneaky.
I think they probably had a warrant at this point anyway, and they're maybe more afraid that she's going to drive off than anything else and do an OJ down the highway.
Yeah, true. No, I approve. It's good.
Yeah, it is kind of weird though. So they're searching her house, and among other things, they realise, hey, those tiles are awfully similar to that one that was soiled and left at the bottom of that pole. And turns out there were 2 tiles at the crime scene that came from a set at her house. Yeah. But okay, we'll fast forward. Spoiler alert, she didn't defecate at the crime scene.
My first reaction to the forensic matter was like, if whomever it was with the rifle and everything took on like the hardcore sniper approach of like, no, I'm going to lie here, still and invisible for however long it takes, and I'll need to do all of my functions. Yeah, just lying here, and then I know he had a towel and he just like did his business and tossed it or something.
I mean, at the very least, you pick up after your dog, you should pick up after yourself. Like, what's wrong with you? And if someone sees that, they're not going to think, oh, a Great Dane must have been wandering around. It's like, dude was shot around the corner. This is, I mean...
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's evidence. It's very
compelling evidence, I'm sure.
Yes.
The thing is, shooter was probably only there for an hour, so you'd think he could hold it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. That was ridiculous, yeah.
We're getting to it. So they search the house. They find the tiles came from a set in her house that she had with Greg. Greg was actually pretty adamant that, like, because police, of course, said, like, by the way, your wife was a bit weird whenever we told her about what happened. He was really insistent that there's no way she was involved with this. But, yeah, they search the house, they look into a few things, and at this point they start connecting some dots. From March or April of 2016, so for the last almost 6 months, Diana had actually started taking up shooting lessons. She went to a local club and she took lessons from a guy called Weldon Kermit McDavid Jr. I know that sounds like I just made it up, but you know,
okay, that's impressive.
Weldon Kermit McDavid Jr. Had been a Marine for 12 years. He did 2 tours. He'd been all over the show, and now he does gun lessons for people at a local club. And yeah, so she ends up doing lessons with him and also bangs him just once. And his wife has just given birth to a new kid. Actually, I think his first kid, and. For some reason, he thinks the best thing to do is, I know I'll sleep with this woman who's in the middle of a divorce. And is telling me all about how her husband is a terrible human being and abusive and A, B, C, and D. And so she's got this whole thing going on, telling him all about it. He actually asks her at a certain point why she's taking gun lessons, and she said she's afraid of him. And he said, well, if you're going to learn to shoot, you need to be prepared to kill. Are you prepared to kill? And she said, yeah, I am. She has to think about it, but yeah, I am. Anyway, the police, for whatever reason, managed to connect them quite quickly. There are people that had placed him at her place beforehand and also the day after. But it does seem like a quick conclusion to jump to that he's involved. So in the same day that she's picked up, a couple of hours later, he's pulled over on the highway, again being told it's a traffic stop, and he's asked to come down to the station for an interview. He's not keen on it, but he goes, and the whole interview is recorded. You can watch it. It's pretty interesting. And he's sitting. It's one of those, you know, cameras mounted on the roof, and it's a bit grainy and everything else. He's sitting in the corner of this little interrogation room. That just adds to the atmosphere, like, pretty much. But he's sitting in the corner, leaning back. His arms are crossed. He looks defensive, and frankly a little bit pissed off that he's there in the first place, but fine. There might be a reason you're here, sir. So there's 2 detectives. One of them asks him, what I want to know is, can you give me where you were last week on Thursday night from 8 o'clock until midnight? And Weldon says no. He's just confident, matter of fact, no. They then ask him if they can have a look at his phone, and Weldon is like, no, you guys are trying to accuse me. The second detective says we're not, and then he said, yeah, dude, yes you are. Like, literally, dude, yes you are. That's not just me.
Okay, that makes it better.
So fine, they try a different tack. They said, is it possible for your DNA to show up in the area of the shooting? Weldon said, I don't even know what the area is. One of the detectives leaves the room, comes back in with a map, and essentially points it out, the dirt path that we were talking about earlier. And Weldon's like, nope, don't know the area. One of them says, have you ever taken a dump out there in the woods? Like a shit. I'm being serious right now. At this point, Weldon obviously is going, oh dear, and says, I know what you're talking about now. And they ask, you do? He's like, yeah. Okay, explain it. He said, I was on the dirt road just running along, then I did have to shit. And the first one goes, that explains it. The other one goes, where did you start the run from? And he's like, oh, I'm not even sure. I just parked my Jeep and then they're like, okay, so you were in the area then? He's like, so he's sort of getting trapped in his own lie now.
Yeah.
Where
you park your Jeep? Do you? No, okay. Continue. This is going to work itself out, I'm sure.
One of the detectives is then pointing at the map and interrupting him, going like, "Okay, so you were here," and he's like, "Yeah, that's where. Yeah, because I did take the shit there. I was feeling really bad, and it was a short run because I got lost, and after I shit, I went back to my Jeep. I'm not sure what street it was on, and then." They're sort of asking him to give specifics where he entered, where he exited, and he just said, "Look, I don't know the area, I don't know the street names, da 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 da." And it kind of explains it, but it also doesn't really work. There is an extended portion of the interview that goes on like this, and they end up asking him about, did you need to wipe yourself, essentially? Mm-hmm. And he says that he came across the tiles by complete chance and used them.
Of course.
As you do, because if you find a strange tile in the woods and you need to relieve yourself, then why not? It's better than poison ivy.
That is true. These are...
mystery tiles. It could have anthrax on it.
True. Well, they were probably not mystery tiles to this person, but I'm just feeling... I'm slightly worried that the police might have been leading him into a reasonable statement, so to speak.
We're good.
Okay, we're good. Cool.
I mean, his DNA is there. They didn't know it at that point, but they test the feces, and it is Weldon's excrement. Like, it's, yeah, dude did it. That bit.
Yeah. But I mean, if it feels like they're leading the witness, so to speak, and giving him a chance to explain stuff.
Yeah, they do give him a chance to explain it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. And the whole thing is super sketchy, and it just seems like nonsense. They confirm that the feces at the crime scene were his, that the tiles came from the house of Diana Lovejoy, and yeah, like, how do you explain this? So... meanwhile, they're actually searching his house, and at this point, his wife, because he's married, whenever he cheated on his wife with Diana Lovejoy, they just had a kid. The kid is now 12 weeks old. They are kicked out of the house until 3 a.m. while the police search it top to bottom, and they find a whole bunch of guns. Like, I mean, the guy's a gun instructor, so fair enough. That makes sense. Yeah. Strangely, one is hidden in the rafters. Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, and it's a rifle. At this point, they haven't tested anything. Who knows? But it does seem super suspicious. And having a rifle that could have been capable of delivering this shot hidden in the rafters of his roof space just seems dodgy as anything. In the end, Weldon does talk to police, and essentially tells them he was paid $1,000 up front, and was supposed to get another $1,000 afterwards, and Diana Lovejoy had talked him into killing her abusive husband. Yeah. It doesn't go down well with Diana. She is being arrested and interviewed at the same time, and she says that she had asked him to scare her husband. She initially... she denies everything. Then they say, look, we have footage of you buying this cell phone. And she said, okay, I asked my gun instructor if he would scare my husband because he's really abusive and because he's a terrible human being. Will you scare him for me? Because I'm scared for me and I'm scared for my son.
That is not too bad as explanations go. Yeah.
And she said that Weldon had asked her to get a burner phone, and that was the only reason she did it. And... they end up going to trial as co-conspirators for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. They're being tried together, which is super interesting because then they can't blame the other one. So with these cases, if you're tried separately, then all you have to do is a reasonable doubt. So if she was tried separately from Weldon, then she could say it was all him, and vice versa. He could say it's all her. But by being tried together, they just need to prove that they were in it together. So it's quite an interesting...
That's quite interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Over the course of the trial, she maintains that... because they have separate defense lawyers, which is super awkward, but that's fine.
Yes, awkward is a good word for that.
Yeah. She insists that no, she doesn't get up and speak during trial, but her lawyer insists that the plan was that she was to pay him $1,000 up front to scare her husband, and then it would be another $1,000 afterwards. She never actually paid the second half, and apparently she dropped Weldon off in the area and he went off to wait. So he was only there like maybe an hour max. And she picked him up afterwards and everything else as well. And whenever he got back in the car, he told her that he'd messed up, but according to her, he didn't say anything more than that. So she had no idea what happened. So this is essentially her defense. Like, the plan was scare the crap out of him. Don't, do anything. Whereas Weldon's defense is she'd paid me to kill him. Or no, sorry. Weldon's defense was I was just there to scare him, but then someone yelled gun and I was worried that they were going to shoot me. So then I went for his left hand. And
okay.
And it's like, well, you got him in the left armpit. Yeah, that's because he was running. Like, it seemed like you were trying to kill him. No, I'm an excellent shot, and if I wanted to kill him, he would be dead. That was pretty much his defense for the rest of the trial. Like, I'm an excellent shot. If I wanted to kill him, he'd be dead. Which
is like not a bad stance, but like dropping that right after you gone like, oh, I was going for his left hand and I ended up shooting him in the torso, but I am an excellent shot. Like, yeah. But just to clarify, since it was a bit of back there, so the gun instructor actually never... So he did say that he was hired to kill them? Sorry,
he didn't. The gun instructor said initially he had no idea. Then it was, I was there having a run and then I needed a poo. Then it was, I was paid to go up there and leave 2 towels by the power pole. And then it was, yeah, like seriously, that was part of the story for a while. And then it was, yeah, I was there to scare him. And
okay, so he never actually admitted that he was there to kill them.
I think later on he has said some stuff, but yeah, at this point, no,
okay, that would have made that makes more sense.
Sorry for that. Yeah, the whole thing is just utterly bizarre. I was paid money to take 2 tiles up to the power pole and leave them. Right? Okay, fine, whatever.
I'm sure you can find weirder things on Craigslist, but
yeah, I'm sure, but like. That's still pretty strange. Okay, there's a quote from one juror that said, among the strongest pieces of evidence was testimony from Lovejoy's aunt, who said a year before the shooting, Diana had asked if she knew someone who would be able to scare or kill her husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is pretty incriminating.
It doesn't sound great.
No.
Another piece of evidence was Weldon had apparently told Diana that he wanted to have a tactical advantage by making sure the ambush took place during the new moon, so like having no visible moon. And it turned out that Diana had done a Google search to find out the next date of the new moon, which was the 1st of September. So the whole thing just seems very much planned and a total bullshit story. I also love how we have a former Marine who's going, like, let's do it in a new moon because then I have a tactical advantage, but does a dump at the crime scene and like leaves all his stuff behind. And
also like they're luring supposedly the one victim, but now there were 2. They're luring them over to a specific point.
Yeah.
And he's lying in ambush within the field of vision of anyone like looking at the point where they're going to be ambushed.
I mean, the bushes are to the right of the pole, but it does seem really stupid. Like, really stupid, especially if you're going for like a long range weapon. Why don't you just stand a bit further away? I guess there's no light. Well, the guy is shining a light around. And you'd assume you would do that.
Or you organize a light, or you set something up over there, so you'll have the benefit of them being slightly blinded, and you'll be on the other side in the shadows, and you'll see them, and it'll be fine.
The guy just, I mean, great, 12 years in the Marines. Obviously, they didn't teach you how to cover your tracks. It is a bit weird, though. You'd also be raging if you were him. Like, not only did it not go to plan, but you didn't even get the rest of your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, the day after the shooting, Weldon was spotted at Diana's home, even though, like, she insisted she'd never seen him after that, and like that. It was just complete nonsense. Weldon kept insisting the police were setting him up, and yeah, the whole thing is a shambles. In the end, on the 31st of January, they are sentenced together. And just as they are reading the verdict, and there's also footage of this, Diana has a little bit of a woozy moment and faints. It's not clear that that's what's happening at the time. Her eyes start to glaze over and she's sort of leaning further and further forward. And I mean, to me, I think it's nonsense. I think it's like a really bad put on, but she's sort of slipping further and further forward. And then finally, and it looks like from the angle, she kind of adjusts herself and then she smacks her head off the table and goes totally limp. Quite limp. And the noise of her head hitting the table is pretty grim, but she's fine. And someone has to like pull her up by her shoulders, and then her head is flopped back in the chair, and the judge is just going for it, reading the verdict and everything, like whatever. And Weldon is sitting nearby her, kind of. He goes from giving her a bit of a side eye to like not caring, and then seeing what's happening, going what? But so then she's like head back and eyes rolling and, you know, like kind of out of it. They end up taking her out of court in a stretcher, rushing her to hospital, where they determined, no, she just fainted, she's fine. And too bad, you were both guilty. She got 26 years to life, he got 50 years to life. And yeah, and that's it. One of the things she said was she felt like she didn't have a voice in the trial, and the judge was having absolutely none of that, and you said you had no voice in the trial, but that was completely your choice, because she chose not to speak in her own defense. She also made a lot of comments about how she was confident the truth would one day come out and all that sort of stuff, and she was still throwing around the abuse allegations at her still actually, I think at that time, her husband. But yeah, it was a mess all around. It's not the end of the story, though. They did get divorced. They were finally divorced in May 2017. The dissolution of marriage was dated 4th of January 2017. So that was like 3 weeks before the verdict.
Yeah.
And a week after, Greg decided to file a civil suit against Diana and Weldon, seeking damages. So by May 2017, a judge ordered that almost $250,000 from the sale of their home, because, sorry lady, you're going to jail, was going to go into a trust. And she would have to pay money out of that trust, actually the interest, which is $575 a month, would go to her, and because she would have an income from that, she would still have to pay child support of the same value as originally agreed. And presumably the money from the house would go entirely to the little one. But at this point, their almost 6-year-old son is living with Greg, and that's it. The end. I mean, it sounds like a good ending, and hopefully the kid will not be traumatized. But how can you not be traumatized?
I mean, it depends on what they learn about. Your
mum banged some dude who has since done an interview and said his biggest regret is cheating on his wife. Not shooting the guy, but his biggest regret is cheating on his wife. It's like,
he's a romantic. Come on.
I mean, romantic enough to wait until your wife, drops your first kid, and then you go out and bang some woman who's like all at it with my husband's abusive, will you shoot him in the face, please? Like,
I mean, when you say it like that, just in the context of like, attempted murder, then it's a slightly romantic.
Yeah. The whole thing is just ridiculous.
Kind of is.
But
It's so much poop.
apparently, apparently Greg was super lucky to survive, because even though only one shot hit him, if he hadn't have gotten to hospital so quickly, then he wouldn't have made it.
I mean, anything through the torso can so easily go wrong. So.
Yeah. But that was my story.
It was an interesting one. It went places.
It did. It went all the places. Well, we've talked about two crimes where someone has been sweet talked into doing something they really shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Shall we have a sweet cocktail to go with it?
We should.
It's full-blown recipe from someone else this week. I've done nothing to it.
Oh, really?
It's like a straightforward copy-paste.
Ah, I thought we were
We're going straight up recipe that I really enjoy. Shall I make you one?
Please do. Let's go mix drinks.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Whoop. Okay, we're all set for our drink of the week.
So we're back. We have our drinks.
We do. It's kind of a caramel coloured one.
Yeah, very much so. It's like caramel fudge thing.
Yeah, but it's supposed to taste like Toblerone chocolate. Do you want to know what's in it before you drink it or after?
Before. I want to hear everything, yes.
Okay. Brown cacao. Mm-hmm. So we should get some chocolate, like dark chocolate and coffee notes in it. Mm-hmm. Honey liqueur.
Ooh.
Yogurt liqueur. Frangelico, so hazelnut liqueur. Mm-hmm. And some dashes of Angostura bitters. I always get confused. What is it? Well, some bitters. Yeah, Angostura. Mm-hmm. It just always sounds slightly wrong to me.
Okay.
I avoid saying it. Anyway. Yeah, so honey liqueur, yogurt liqueur, brown cacao, liqueur, of course, Frangelico, and Angostura bitters.
And a bit of chocolate on the side.
Yeah, and some chocolate sauce. Cheers. I love this one. It's pretty much like Toblerone.
It is a bit more caramelly, but I might just be overthinking it since you said it. But no, it's tasty.
It's dessert in a glass.
It really is. It is quite sweet and cool and nice.
I'm quite happy with this. Whenever I was researching my crime for this week, I had a couple of other candidates.
Oh.
How are you enjoying the drink?
I'm loving it.
Yay.
And I'm really trying not to just keep drinking it. Like,
I think you're probably fine.
This, for instance, like this as a really huge milkshake version of this, basically, would kind of make my day.
Seriously?
It might just be that the sun is out and it's warm and I'm really thinking about milkshakes and stuff.
Yeah.
But like having a really big glass with a straw and just like, oh.
Topped with cream.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a bit excessive.
I was actually, during your crime, thinking a lot because I'm pretty sure it's a different one, but I encountered a very similar one. I don't remember all the details. I'm very sure that it wasn't in the United States of America.
Yeah.
But it was a similar thing of a woman trying to get rid of her husband and convinced someone that there had been sexual abuse towards their 2-year-old kid. Ugh. And then got them to kill them, basically.
It's such a shitty thing to do.
It is. Like, it is.
So the other one I was going to do this week that I was really committed to doing, but ended up not because I couldn't find a verdict, was, I think it was 2013, Nigeria. This, basically husband and wife are having some marital drama. She's pregnant with their 4th kid, but he is very much like, I'm not sure this is my kid.
Okay.
She is not very impressed about this accusation. And it causes a lot of drama in their relationship. And in the end, the impression I get is he said, I want a DNA test as soon as the kid's born. And she's like, fine then, we'll do it. Before the kid is born, some strange stuff starts to happen. So essentially, he gets a phone call from a pastor who's a friend of theirs, like church pastor, and says, "Hey, will you come meet me and we'll have a chat?" So he drives down and meets this guy, and apparently, this is all allegedly, gets stabbed a whole bunch of times by the pastor, which seems kind of random.
Really?
Until it turns out the pastor is probably the father of the kid that she's pregnant with. So yeah, meanwhile, so the husband had just bought a new car, didn't drive down to see the pastor in the new car, drops the car off to the church and gives it to the pastor and says, "This is for you. This is a gift because I know you're going to do everything you can to like make sure my husband comes back because I haven't seen him and he's a bit upset with me." And this is the story she's telling. And the pastor goes ahead and changes the number plates in the car and starts driving around in it. Meanwhile, the police find the burnt body of her husband in his old car nearby. And it's very much like, what?
Yep.
She just reported him missing after like 4 days. And they're wondering why the pastor is driving around in the husband's latest car with new number plates on it. And she said, "Oh, well, I wanted to plant a seed with the church to help make sure my husband was going to come home safe and sound. And I didn't know he was going to change the plates." And the pastor is sort of like, yeah, there's nothing untoward going on here. If
you say so.
Yeah, it all just seems dodgy as anything. She has had the fourth kid at this point. No idea what happened with the DNA test. No idea if they were convicted. They were both arrested. They both denied having a relationship. But it was a super interesting story. There's so many good details. But it's yeah. We'll I'll stick the name up on our Twitter. But
yeah, it would be interesting. I want to think that with all of those circumstances that they would be able to push, like the police would push a paternity test, but
I mean, does it matter at that point? Probably not.
Well, I mean, that would kind of solidify.
Yeah, I guess it undermines the whole, yeah, we weren't banging argument. I mean, it wasn't even their pastor from their church. It's like a sort of friend of theirs. The whole thing is strange.
Yeah.
It's utterly strange.
Huh.
Yeah. That was another candidate for this week.
Fair enough.
I would have done it and gone into all the gory details if I had have had a verdict, but it's all allegedly. So, yeah.
Maybe in the future.
Maybe.
An update.
No, this was like 4 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's no updates.
Huh.
I don't know. People don't give a shit.
That's really weird.
We don't have any listeners in Nigeria, though.
In
the continent of Africa, we only have South Africa, I think, listening.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
They will come, and then we'll get the mentions.
I don't know if there's much of a market for true crime. Anyway. We should probably wrap it up for this week. You've finished your cocktail at record speed.
Of course, it was delicious.
Isn't
I
it
wanted
delicious?
to inhale it. See, I'm just staring longingly at my empty glass and seeing one drop left, which I will try to savor.
It's super simple. It's equal measures of cacao brown, frangelico, that's the hazelnut liqueur, honey liqueur, yogurt liqueur, and then 4 dashes per serving of the bitters. That's it.
It is a good. I'm still surprised at the honey, because like you can't taste it, but you can see how it kind of binds it all together.
It makes it more complex, but it definitely doesn't come through. I wonder what it would be like with butterscotch liqueur instead. Usually I do this with the white cacao, which is good as well. But I'll stick the recipe and the source up on our website, and because it's really good, but this is not my recipe, not by long shot. Yeah, and if you're in Amsterdam, go to House of Bols. They have very reasonably priced cocktails and awesome bartenders. So.
And a lot of liqueur bottles to buy.
Yeah. How many am I up to? Way too many. It's a simple cocktail, but like you need to have your liqueur selection up and running. And
yes.
For me, I've been collecting for a while.
But as everyone should have, a well-stocked cabinet. I say this and I do not. I have nothing, but I should have.
Okay, we'll say farewell. We hope you have a great week, as usual.
If you have any comments, updates, or suggestions on this episode, just let us know. You can reach it on Twitter at Crime by the Bar.
Or if you have something longer to tell us about, then send us an email, crimebythebar@gmail.com. And we welcome your comments on the creepy person walking around on my roof right now, because it's freaking me out a lot and I've stopped sleeping with the door open. So yeah, any thoughts on that are more than welcome.
Yeah, thoughts.
Please tell me something reassuring.
Well, yeah, every time it's brought up, I've started, ever since our little aside, the last full episode, I think it was.
Yeah.
I've been starting thinking of like, oh, what are the actual possibilities of like booby trapping the roof and setting up general hindrances for people not to walk there?
I mean, you could put a load of birdseed up there. Well, I don't know. Just then you have some seagulls to contend with who are sleeping up there.
I suppose. And Cafe will have a wonderful show to watch in the morning.
That's true. I was thinking like maybe I should get a camera and put it up there, or a motion sensor, but I don't know if I want to know that stuff. Like, what if I'm woken up at 4 a.m. by someone walking around the roof? That's going to freak me out. And it might not even be someone walking. It might be like a bird. Anyway.
I still think that the motion sensor might be better than the camera. Just having a motion sensor and having it setting off like a bright light or...
To freak them out?
Yeah. So like if it's a bird, it'll fly away. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And if it's a person, they'll think like, oh shit, they're onto me.
Maybe I should just leave a nasty note up there. Get off my roof. You're interrupting my slumber. The police have been informed.
Or just, stop it. I know your mother.
Ooh, that's good.
But yeah, have a lovely week, and we'll see you again on Friday.
We'll see you on Friday.
More crime and possible more social commentary.
Oh, I'm excited about my Friday one.
Oh, really?
Yeah? Tune in and find out.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Ice. Yes.
Ice baby.
Thank you. I did say my crime was vanilla.
Oh, very good. That is very, very good. Oh, full circle.